Welcome to the History in Focus channel. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss more videos like this one.
A cowboy at BT Ranch, Missouri, 1887. The reality of cowboy work: wake up at 4 in the morning, ride 14 hours, eat dust from 3,000 head of cattle, earn $30 per month, sleep on the ground, risk your life in swollen rivers and storms. Movies romanticized it. Life was brutal, lonely, and short. A cougar captured in Ravalli County. The government paid bounties for dead predators. $20 per cougar, 5 per wolf, 1 per coyote. Professional hunters eliminated 80% of Montana's big cats in 30 years. Only in 1971 did the cougar gain legal protection. James Rivas, the man who almost stole Arizona. With forged documents, he claimed to own 2,700 square miles, an area larger than several countries. For 10 years, he charged rent from farmers, miners, and even the Southern Pacific Railroad. When they discovered the fraud, he had already pocketed millions. He got 6 years in prison. Seth Bullock stood 6 feet 2 inches tall and had a gaze that, according to reports, made armed men back down without him drawing his weapon. He arrived in Deadwood the same day Wild Bill was killed. As sheriff, he never killed anyone. His presence was enough. Later, he became such a close friend of Theodore Roosevelt that he was invited to the presidential inauguration. A wagon is a school bus, 1850s. Rural education was a luxury. Teachers earned $2 per week, less than a cowboy. Schools operated 3 months per year between planting and harvest. 6-year-old children walked 6 miles to study. Many parents preferred child labor to education. Jim Bridger, the greatest of the mountain men, he discovered the Great Salt Lake thinking it was the ocean. He guided expeditions that opened the Oregon Trail. He lived 40 years in the Rockies without map or company. He married 3 times to native women from different tribes. He spoke 12 languages. He died poor and nearly blind in 1881. The Reno brothers carried out the first train robbery in motion in history in 1866. They took $10,000. They invented a profession that Jesse James would make famous, but they didn't last long. In 1868, a mob of 300 people invaded the prison where they were, held, and lynched the brothers. Lily Davy in the mid-1890s, before becoming Pearl Hart. She looks like an ordinary middle-class girl. She married young. Her husband abandoned her. She went west to work as a cook. The transformation took less than 5 years. The West created bandits as much as it attracted them. This is the stagecoach robbed by Pearl Hart and Joe Boot, May 1899. It was the last stagecoach robbery in American history. They took $431 from 3 passengers. Pearl returned $1 to each for breakfast. The kindness made headlines. They were arrested 3 days later, lost in the desert. Here, Pearl Hart poses with the pistol from the robbery in Florence, Arizona. After the arrest, she became an instant celebrity. Journalists came from all over the country. She sold interviews and photos. She declared, "I will not be tried by laws that women didn't help create." The jury, all men, convicted her in 30 minutes. The Yuma Territorial Prison, where Pearl Hart spent 3 years, they called it Hell of Yuma, 113 degrees Fahrenheit in summer, cells without ventilation, rationed water. Of the 3,069 prisoners who passed through there, 111 died, mainly from tuberculosis. Pearl survived. She was released in 1902 and disappeared from history. Saloon and General Store in Alta, Utah, 1860s. Alta was a silver mining town at 8,530 feet of altitude. Avalanches killed dozens per year. The local cemetery grew faster than the town. In 1873, a single avalanche killed 60 people. The survivors rebuilt and went back to mining. Deadwood's Main Street in Celebration, 1888. The reason? A new mining factory. The easy gold from the rivers had already run out. Now only machines could extract the metal from the rocks. Factories meant jobs and survival. Without them, Deadwood would become a ghost town. Plenty Coups, last traditional Crow chief, 1908. He allied the Crow with the American Army against Sioux and Cheyenne, ancestral enemies. The strategy worked. The Crow kept their lands while others lost everything. Plenty Coups said, "When the buffalo went away, the hearts of my people fell to the ground." Little, labeled as the instigator of the revolt at Pine Ridge. The newspapers of the time painted him as a villain. In reality, he was trying to keep his people together while the government cut rations promised by treaty. People were dying of hunger. When they protested, they were called hostiles. Apache Scouts of the American Army, Arizona, 1880. It seems like a contradiction, but it makes sense. Some Apaches worked for the Army against other rival tribes. They earned $13 per month and rations for their families. It was survival. Geronimo was only captured because other Apaches helped track him. The Gem Theater of Deadwood. It wasn't a theater, it was one of the most violent brothels in the West. Al Swearingen, its owner, trafficked women from the East Coast promising acting jobs. In the basement, prostitutes who tried to escape were beaten. At least 3 women were murdered there. The theater operated for 20 years with impunity. Fire wagon in Bakersfield, California, 1880. Wooden towns burned regularly. San Francisco burned 6 times before the 1906 earthquake. Firefighters were volunteers who left their jobs when the bell rang. There were no hydrants. They carried water in buckets. Many died trying to save doomed towns. Wounded soldier being transported after the Battle of Slim Buttes, 1876. This battle was retaliation for Little Bighorn 3 months earlier. The Army attacked a Lakota village at dawn, killing women and children. They called it a victory. The natives called it a massacre. The difference was who told the story. The Wells Fargo armored wagon transporting gold. Each trip carried up to $50,000 in nuggets, the equivalent of $1.5 million today. Guards earned $125 per month to risk their lives. Wells Fargo was robbed 347 times between 1870 and 1884. Drivers had a life expectancy of 3 years in the job. Siringo and Sayers, Pinkerton Agency detectives. Pinkerton was larger than the American Army. It had 30,000 agents in 1890. They infiltrated unions, hunted bandits, broke strikes. Siringo pursued Butch Cassidy for 5 years without capturing him. The methods were brutal, but the results justified it for those who paid. Native prisoners from the Red River War, 1875. They were sent to Fort Marion Prison in Florida, 164 miles from home. There, an officer named Richard Pratt had an idea: create schools to civilize Indians. Thus began the boarding school system that would separate 100,000 children from their families in the following decades. Adam Tucksharer commanded the Anaconda Brewing Company, one of 4,000 breweries that existed in the United States in 1880. Beer was safer than water. Cholera and typhoid outbreaks were common. A miner spent up to 25% of his salary on drink. Tucksharer became a millionaire, selling beverages to thirsty workers. Bison capture in the Great Plains, 1887. In 1800, there were 60 million bison. By 1890, 1,000 remained. The army encouraged the slaughter to subdue the natives who depended on the animal. A single hunter killed 100 per day. The bodies rotted on the prairies. It was planned extermination, and it almost worked. A train from the Iron Mountain Company loaded with ore. Montana's iron built the railroads that cut across the country. The company owners became millionaires. The miners who extracted the iron earned $3 per day and died on average at age 45, with lungs destroyed by dust. Progress had a high human cost. Workers posed in front of a log cabin in Siskiyou County, California, around 1890. The region on the Oregon border was disputed by prospectors and loggers. The county had so many conflicts that residents tried to create a separate state, the state of Jefferson. Cowboys playing mumble peg at the Turkey Track Ranch, 1906. The game involved throwing knives closer and closer to one's own feet. Whoever missed had to pull out with their teeth a stake driven into the ground, hence the name Mumble the Peg. Cowboys invented dangerous entertainment because life was already dangerous anyway. The Men of Deadwood's last official stagecoach, 1890. The train had arrived, killing the romance of carriage travel. A journey that took 3 dangerous days now took 6 safe hours. These men were the last of a profession that had existed for 200 years. In a decade, the automobile would also kill urban carriages. Interior of a saloon in St. Ignatius, Montana. Men crowd the bar while others play cards at a nearby table. The wood stove in the center was essential. Temperatures in Montana reached 22 degrees below zero Fahrenheit in winter. Many men spent more time here than at home. Denver, Colorado, 1860. This cluster of buildings would become the state capital in a metropolis of 700,000 inhabitants. The location was perfect. Last stop before the mountains. Everyone going somewhere passed through here. The founders had no gold, but they had vision. They bought the future for pennies. Women of the De La Guerra family, Santa Barbara, 1875. The De La Guerras were Californian Spanish aristocracy, landowners since 1769. And when the Americans won the war in 1848, the gradual loss began. American courts didn't recognize Spanish documents. In one generation, they lost almost everything. Indigenous girls at Pine Ridge, 1891, 1 year after Wounded Knee. The government forced assimilation. Cut hair, European clothes, Christian names. Girls who spoke Lakota were punished. Many ran away to die of cold trying to return home. A street in Havre, Montana, around 1900. Havre had an underground secret, a labyrinth of tunnels where illegal bars, brothels, and opium dens operated. When the law prohibited vices on the surface, the city went underground. These tunnels still exist today and can be visited. Cattle branding and open range, Montana, 1900. Each ranch had a unique symbol burned into the animal's hide. There were 50,000 registered brands in the West. Stealing branded cattle meant hanging. Clever thieves altered brands. A C became an O with a hot iron. It was a crime of art as much as theft. A hunting party in Yellowstone National Park, late 19th century. Yellowstone was the world's first national park, created in 1872, but park didn't mean protection. Hunters still freely slaughtered bison, elk, and bears. Hunting was only prohibited in 1894, when only 25 wild bison remained in the entire park. The Palace Hotel, $5 per week, $1 per day for meals. A miner earned $3 per day, a cowboy $1. This hotel was for the few who were lucky. Most slept in collective barracks, where 20 men shared a room without ventilation, paying 25 cents per night for a straw mattress. Cottonwood, Charlie Nebo and his partner Nick, 1880s. Ordinary men of the West, no fame, no fortune, just survival. For every Wyatt Earp, there were 10,000 men like this. We know nothing about them except this photo. Deadwood, in 1900, now tamed. Wild Bill's shootout was ancient history. The town now had electric lights, telephone, and even a streetcar system. The population had dropped from 25,000 at the height of the gold rush to 4,000 stable inhabitants. Chaos became order, legend became memory, gold became history. The Salt Lake House, one of the first hotels in Salt Lake City, Utah, 1860s. The Mormons arrived in 1847, fleeing religious persecution. Brigham Young said, "This is the place." There was no gold, no silver. There was faith. They built a city in the desert with irrigation and collective work. The hotel received travelers heading to California. The teepee of Mrs. American Horse on the Pine Ridge Reservation. Her husband, Chief American Horse, was one of the Lakota leaders who tried to negotiate peace with the American government. He was present at Wounded Knee trying to prevent the massacre, and watched his people be gunned down anyway. The family lost everything. A Northern Pacific railcar destroyed by explosion. Railroad accidents killed 2,000 Americans per year in the 1890s. Boilers exploded, tracks gave way, brakes failed. The company paid miserable compensations. A worker's life was worth less than the cargo he transported. Main Street of Helena, Montana, 1870s. Helena had more millionaires per capita than any American city. Gold was so abundant that a 12-year-old boy found nuggets valued at $100,000 in one afternoon. The wealth attracted the best architects in the country. Buildings from that era still stand. A Navajo mother with her family, Winslow, Arizona, 1912. The Navajo had suffered the long walk of 1864, 310 miles forced on foot to a concentration camp where 2,000 died. When they were able to return, they found their lands occupied. This family survived one of the most brutal episodes in American history. Mountain men with their pack horses. These mountain men lived months without seeing another human being. They knew routes that existed on no map. They survived eating roots, hunting, and trading furs. Many preferred to die alone in the mountains rather than return to civilization. Solitude was the price of freedom. Buffalo Bill and Lulu, his wife. The marriage was a 50-year disaster. Bill filed for divorce, claiming Lulu tried to poison him. She counterattacked by exposing his mistresses. The judge denied the divorce. They lived apart for the rest of their lives, united only by mutual hatred. July 4th, 1887. Cheyenne leaders meet American authorities. Less than 10 years before, these warriors fought against Custer. Now they negotiated rations and blankets. The Cheyenne had lost 90% of their population to wars and diseases since 1850. The men in this photo were survivors of an ongoing genocide. Frederick Wadsworth Loring with his mule, 1871. A journalist from Boston, he was 23 years old when he came to document the West. He was talented. His reports became a book. 3 months after this photo, Apache warriors attacked his stagecoach in Arizona. Loring took 2 arrows and died. Men, women, and children enjoy a day by Flathead Lake, Montana, in the late 19th century. At 185 square miles, Flathead is the largest natural freshwater lake west of the Mississippi. The native Salish Kootenai people had fished here for 12,000 years before white people arrived. Warren Earp, the forgotten brother. While Wyatt became a legend, Warren lived in his shadow. He tried to be a lawman like his brothers, but was fired for brutality. He drank too much, fought too much. He died in 1900 at age 45, shot in a bar fight by a man he had humiliated. A saloon in Missoula, Montana. There was one saloon for every 150 inhabitants in the Old West. Whiskey cost 5 cents a glass. It was cheaper than milk. The alcohol was frequently adulterated with tobacco, pepper, and even strychnine to give it strength. Many died poisoned, thinking they were just drunk. Women in Atlantic City wearing 1890s fashion, photographed around 1920. Now, the Old West was already nostalgic fantasy. Buffalo Bill shows and silent films romanticized what had been brutal. Deaths became adventure. Genocide became progress. History became entertainment. And so it continues. General Nelson Miles observes the largest hostile encampment in the United States, January 1891. 3 weeks earlier, his troops had massacred 300 people at Wounded Knee. Now he surrounded 4,000 frightened Lakota. Miles knew another massacre would cause national outrage. He negotiated the surrender. The survivors had no choice. Fighting fires in the Rocky Mountains, early 1900s. In 1910, the big blowup burned 3 million acres in just 2 days, killing 85 firefighters. Men like these faced the fire with shovels and wet branches. There was no radio, helicopter, or equipment, only courage and a lot of luck to survive. Paiute group near Cedar, Utah, 1872. The Paiute had lived in this desert for 10,000 years. They survived where others died, knowing every water source, every edible root. When white people arrived, they brought diseases that killed 90% of the population in 50 years. The survivors became tourist attractions. Steve and Charlie Utter at Wild Bill Hickok's grave. Bill was killed with a shot to the back of the head on August 2, 1876, while playing poker. He was holding aces and eights, today known as the dead man's hand. And the killer, Jack McCall, was hanged. Wild Bill's grave is visited by 100,000 people per year to this day. An 8-ton thresher collapses a bridge in Parker County, 1890s. The machine cost the equivalent of an average farm. Wooden bridges were built for 100-pound wagons. Technological progress was faster than infrastructure. Accidents like this ruined families. Cowboys dine on the banks of the Yellowstone. The man in the suit is Charles Morris, who made a fortune selling postcards of the West. While cowboys earned $30 a month risking their lives, Morris profited from photographing them. A single postcard sold for 5 cents. He sold thousands per week. George Ruffner, sheriff of Yavapai County, Arizona. He faced cattle rustlers, murderers, and the last bands of hostile Apaches. He survived 2 shootouts and an ambush. Arizona sheriffs had a life expectancy of 4 years in office. Ruffner served for 8. He retired, which few managed. Dora Dufresne was a brothel madam for 40 years in Deadwood. Unlike others, she treated her workers with dignity and paid fair wages. She was a personal friend of Calamity Jane, whom she helped financially until her death. When Dora died in 1934, she was one of the wealthiest women in town. Tondre's Saloon in Castroville, Texas. Texas had 8,000 saloons in 1890, one for every 250 inhabitants. They were bank, post office, court, and social center. Duels were settled right there. The bartender was frequently an improvised doctor, removing bullets from survivors. Sam Johns and his dog in the ranch cabin, 1893. In the isolation of the West, dogs were alarms against intruders, company against loneliness, and in emergencies, the difference between life and death. Stories of dogs that ran miles to fetch help were common. Sam could trust the dog more than distant neighbors. Montana, 1906. While New York already had an electric subway, these people were still baking bread in outdoor clay ovens. French Gulch was a community of French immigrants who maintained old world traditions. Bread baked this way lasted weeks without spoiling, essential when the nearest town was days of travel away. A street in Creede, Colorado, 1892. The population jumped from 0 to 10,000 in 6 months when they found silver. There was 1 murder per day. Sheriff Bob Ford, the man who killed Jesse James, was killed here in revenge. When the silver ran out, the town emptied as quickly as it filled. Plenty horses. Lakota warrior who killed an army officer in 1891. He was tried for murder but acquitted. The argument? If it was war, killing enemies is not a crime. The same court that condemned natives for defending themselves had to admit the United States was at war against people who only wanted their land. Brigham Young, Mormon leader, Salt Lake City. He had 55 official wives and 57 recognized children. He governed Utah as a personal theocracy for 30 years. He ordered the Mountain Meadows Massacre in 1857, where 120 settlers were killed. He died wealthy in 1877. His estate, including wives, was divided in court. Men relax in an improvised wooden structure over a mud bath in Hot Springs, Montana, 1899. At the time, it was believed that hot mud cured arthritis, rheumatism, and skin diseases. Without antibiotics or modern medicine, people sought cures where they could, even in a mud hole in the middle of nowhere. William F. M. Arney, mountain man, 1875. These men lived decades without contact with civilization. They knew every trail, every river, every danger. They guided the expeditions that mapped the West. When the railroads arrived and the maps were ready, they were no longer needed. Many died poor and forgotten. Downtown Shiner, Texas, 1905. The 2-story building still exists. Now it's a museum. Shiner was founded by German immigrants who brought something more valuable than gold, the beer recipe. The Sputzel Brewery, founded here in 1909, still produces the famous Shinerbach. The beer survived Prohibition by selling ice. Teams from Deadwood's Chinatown compete in a wagon race. Chinese immigrants did the jobs nobody wanted: laundry, mining tailings, railroad construction. They were forbidden from testifying against white people in courts. Even so, they created their own community with temples, theaters, and festivals. The Shade Saloon, Fort Jones, California, 1910. The name promised what the desert didn't offer: shade. Roadside saloons were oases for travelers: water for horses, whiskey for men, information for all. Owners knew everything, who passed through, where they were going, what they carried. Information was worth as much as a drink. Miners in Aubine Ravine, California, 1852. The gold rush attracted 300,000 people in 4 years. These men worked 12 hours a day in freezing water. Most found nothing. Merchants who sold shovels and jeans got rich. Levi Strauss started this way. The real gold was in selling dreams. Quigley, Montana, 1896. A newly created mining camp. Of the 100,000 people who rushed to Montana's gold, less than 1% found enough to pay for the trip's expenses. Quigley existed for only 4 years. Today, not a single building remains, only accounts of shattered dreams. The private bar of the H. Cook Ranch, Montana, 1900. Isolated ranchers built their own saloons to attract distant neighbors. It was a social and economic strategy. Whoever had drink had company and information. News arrived through travelers. A good bar was the difference between isolation and community. The legendary Deadwood Coach. This specific stagecoach became famous for surviving multiple robberies. After retirement, it was bought by Buffalo Bill for his Wild West show. It traveled through Europe and was seen by queens and presidents. Today, it's in the Buffalo Bill Museum in Cody, Wyoming. Crew celebrates completion of the Sunset Route, Texas, 1883. The Southern Pacific connected New Orleans to Los Angeles with 988 miles of track. Chinese and Mexican workers did the heavy labor for $1 a day. They died from heat, accidents, and violence. Their names don't appear in any celebration. Market Day in Fort Worth, Texas, 1875. Fort Worth was a mandatory stop on the Chisholm Trail, a route through which 5 million head of cattle passed in 20 years. Cowboys arrived after months on the road. In one night, they spent on drink and prostitutes what they earned in 3 months. Train accident in Wicks, Montana, 1887. Derailments killed 300 people per year in that decade. Companies preferred to pay compensations rather than invest in safety. A life was worth $5,000 on average. Improving the brakes would cost $10,000 per train. The mathematics of death favored profit over life. Theodore Roosevelt and John Muir in Yosemite, 1903. They camped together for 3 nights. Muir convinced the president to protect wildlands. Roosevelt would create 5 national parks, 18 national monuments, and 150 protected forests. This photo captures the moment that saved millions of acres from destruction. The survivors of Chief Bigfoot's band after the Wounded Knee Massacre. On December 29, 1890, 300 Lakota were killed, most of them women and children trying to flee. The bodies remained frozen in the snow for 3 days before being thrown into a mass grave. This photo shows those who escaped the unthinkable. Men playing cards in Billings, Montana. Poker moved more money than banks in many western towns. Professional gamblers like Wild Bill earned $100 per night, more than a cowboy earned in 3 months. But cheaters caught were killed on the spot. Seller of miracle medicines, Oklahoma, 1895. These elixirs contained opium, alcohol, and mercury. They promised to cure everything from headaches to cancer. They were legal and sold to children. The original Coca-Cola had cocaine. Laudanum made from opium was given to babies to sleep. Thousands died from medicinal overdoses. Blue Duck and Belle Starr, 1886. Belle was the queen of the bandits. She stole horses, hid fugitives, seduced outlaws. She was shot in the back 2 days before her 41st birthday. The killer was never discovered. Suspects included her son, her lover, and at least 3 ex-husbands. Cosmopolitan Saloon, Telluride, 1910. Butch Cassidy robbed his first bank just a few yards from here in 1889. He took $21,000. Telluride had so many robberies that banks offered theft insurance. Crime was so common, it became a cost of doing business. Deadwood, 1876. Less than a year of existence. The town shouldn't even exist, and it was in Lakota territory protected by federal treaty. But when there's gold, treaties become paper. The government turned a blind eye. The military that should have expelled the invaders ended up protecting them. A family at the entrance of their adobe home, Utah, 1900. Houses like this were cool in summer and warm in winter, technology that native peoples had used for millennia. Each wall took weeks to dry. Those that survived are more than 150 years old. 1876. Deadwood's Main Street was already bustling with commerce. Shops like the Tin Shop and Hong Kee served thousands of prospectors. In just 6 months, the population jumped from 0 to 5,000 inhabitants. The gold from the Black Hills attracted 100 new residents per day. The street would witness Wild Bill Hickok being assassinated just weeks after this photo. A band poses at Bridal Veil Falls, Telluride, 1886. Miners worked at 9,142 feet of altitude and temperatures of 22 degrees below 0 Fahrenheit. The band played at funerals of miners killed in accidents. There were many. Music was the only relief. A steam train passes through Belton along the Flathead River. The Great Northern Railway arrived here in 1891, reducing a journey of weeks to hours. But progress had a price. For every mile of track, 1 Chinese or Irish worker died on average. 2 men and a boy fish in Deep Creek, Montana. Montana's native trout, the cutthroat, could weigh up to 40 pounds. Professional fishermen supplied mining camps. A single large fish was worth a day's work. This moment of family peace was rare in an era when 10-year-old children already worked in the mines. A young Oglala woman in front of her teepee on the Pine Ridge Reservation around 1890. Just months before or after this photo, 300 of her people would be massacred at Wounded Knee, less than 19 miles from there. Children, women, elderly, machine gunned by the American cavalry. Miners in the Black Hills. The gold was discovered illegally. The region belonged to the Lakota by the Treaty of 1868. The government sent General Custer to investigate. He confirmed the gold, and within months, 15,000 prospectors invaded sacred indigenous territory. The treaty was ignored. Men built the first jail on the Rocky Boys Reservation, Montana. Curiously, this reservation was the last created in Montana in 1916. Chief Stonechild Rocky Boy fought 30 years for a land for his Chippewa Cree people. In the Old West, horse theft carried the death penalty. Stealing indigenous lands carried no penalty at all. Miners from the Comstock Mines, Nevada, 1880. Comstock produced $400 million in silver, billions in current values. The miners who extracted this fortune earned $4 per day. They worked at 122 degrees Fahrenheit in tunnels 1,969 feet deep. Life expectancy after 5 years, 0. A family on the Flathead Reservation, around 1905. The 1855 treaty promised 1.2 million acres to the Salish Kootenai. In 1904, the government opened the reservation to white settlers without consulting the tribe. In 5 years, the natives lost 60% of the promised lands. The family in this photo probably watched all of this happen. Circle City Saloon in Nome, Alaska, 1902. The Nome Gold Rush was the last and most insane. In 1899, they discovered gold on the beach. Anyone could pick it up. In months, 20,000 people arrived. The town had no sewage, drinking water, or law. Diseases killed more than the cold. Of those who went, few returned. Pardee, Montana, in the 1880s. The town emerged when they found gold in 1883. By 1893, it was already abandoned. Only 10 years of existence. The West is full of parties, places that were born, lived, and died faster than a generation. Today, only stone foundations swallowed by the forest remain. The Blackfoot Glacier in the late 19th century. When this photo was taken, the glacier was 3 miles long. Today, less than 25% remains. Scientists estimate that by 2030, there will be no more glaciers in the park. This image is a record of a world that is disappearing. Deadwood in 1876, months after its founding. The main street was already bustling with commerce, liquor stores, loaded wagons, horses everywhere. There was no law, no order, only gold and the promise of wealth. That year, 100 people were murdered in a town of 5,000. Your chance of dying violently was 2%. The Adams Store in Garnet, Montana, a town that once had 1,000 inhabitants during the gold rush. When the gold ran out in 1905, everyone left. Today, Garnet is one of the best preserved ghost towns in the United States. This porch where men rested now receives only curious tourists. Main Street of Tacoma, Washington, 1871. Tacoma competed with Seattle to be the largest city in the Northwest. When the Northern Pacific Railway chose Tacoma as its terminal in 1873, it seemed like it would win. Seattle counterattacked by building its own railroad. Tacoma lost the war. Seattle became a metropolis. Tacoma, a footnote.